Welcome to Our Own Voice, a partnership in mental health awareness in cooperation with Nami Wichita and KSUN Community Radio. Nami is a national alliance on mental illness. We're the largest grassroots advocacy network for people with a mental illness and their family members, with over 800 national affiliates and 13 Kansas affiliates, with Nami Wichita being one of those 13. We provide awareness, support, education, and advocacy for people affected by mental illness. Our purpose here is to provide a community conversation on KSUN Radio that gives insight into what it's like to live with a mental illness. Our intention and hope is that our program will change attitudes, assumptions, and stereotypes about people with mental health conditions, and in so doing, we will stop the stigma associated with mental illness. My name is David Larson. I'm very pleased and proud to be your host today, and I'm a person living with mental illness. I'm in recovery for major depressive disorder. Like everyone, I struggle with the ups and downs of emotions and the challenges of being fully human, but I am doing great, and I know I have many gifts to offer my family, my friends, and my community. Now, before I get too far into the program, I want to introduce David Peterson, our executive producer. Hello, David.
Hello, David.
And our technical producer, Matthew. Hello, Matthew.
Hello, everybody.
And our helper for Matthew is Mike Padilla, who is the actual technical producer. Hello, Mike.
I'm just a helper today.
You're just a helper, but you're still very much useful. So that's good.
Well, thank you very much.
So, and
am I supposed to feel used?
Yes.
Okay. If I consider my age, I'm fine with that.
Well, having introduced everyone, now I want to introduce our guest, and our guest for today is Rhonda Lewis. Do I say Dr. Rhonda Lewis?
You can if you like.
Okay. So how do you want to be addressed? Rhonda?
That's fine.
We'll do that. Okay. So Rhonda, let me start out by asking you, where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Wichita, Kansas, and I grew up here in Wichita, Kansas.
Wonderful. And what high school did you graduate from?
I graduated from Wichita High School Heights.
And what is their mascot?
The Falcons.
The
of course.
Falcons. All right. Awesome. Okay. Well, so was your childhood an eventful childhood, non-eventful childhood? What was it?
It was wonderful.
It was
I
wonderful?
had a wonderful childhood. My parents were great. I had a wonderful family, and we really got along great. I mean, I had a beautiful childhood growing up here in Wichita, Kansas. I mean, most people thought Wichita was being kind of boring. I saw it as being kind of a cow town, but I really enjoyed it.
That's good.
I did. I really liked Wichita, Kansas.
Okay. Well, so from Wichita, from high school, where did you go to college?
I went to Wichita State University.
Wichita State.
Yes,
and
I stuck around.
Then where did you go for your doctorate degree?
I went to the University of Kansas.
University of Kansas. Okay. And so scramble your brain cells here. When about was this graduation for your doctorate?
I graduated from University of Kansas in 1996, and then I went on to get a master's in public health, also from the University of Kansas Medical School. And then I was able to come back here to Wichita State, and I was able to be at Wichita State and become a professor.
Wonderful.
So I got to come back home and do all the great work that I want to do right here in my own hometown.
Excellent.
So that's very rare to be able to do that. I always say that Wichita, Kansas has a lot of the big world problems that a lot of major cities like Chicago and New York City may have. But what's wonderful about Wichita, Kansas is that we can do something about them.
That is neat. I like that.
Oh,
I like
yeah.
that thought too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good.
You're a
positive
professor
thought.
at Wichita State?
I am.
I go to Wichita State.
That's awesome. Maybe I get to see you.
What-
I'm in psychology.
You're psychology?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't like psychology.
You didn't
but
like
I'll take the class.
Boo, Hiss.
Don't
Psychology's
admit
the
that on the radio.
So what's your major?
My
What's your
major is
major?
communications and electronic media.
Oh, well, communication's good, but psychology helps you to learn how people behave and what's going on with the mind.
That's
because
very
that's going
true.
to help you to be a better communicator.
It was probably the teacher, but I'm sure you're better than him.
Oh, okay. All right, we'll talk later after
Hey,
after
you kind of
this.
saved yourself on that one.
We'll talk later after this
Well,
conversation.
I am sure that you are an awesome professor, because I would have loved to had a professor like you in undergraduate.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think back to my psych professor, and he was okay,
Yeah.
but he was just okay.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He wasn't nearly as creative as my sister's psych professors.
Oh,
My
okay.
sister got a degree in psychology, so
Oh yeah, psychology is a wonderful field. I mean, we like to think of ourselves as a hub discipline, where we kind of relate to all of the other behavioral and social sciences like criminology, sociology, public health, political science. I mean, all of them. I mean,
Yeah.
criminal justice. I mean, social work. I mean, we relate to so many other disciplines.
yes. So let me ask you this question now, which may sort of stump you. Hopefully it doesn't.
Oh, okay.
But at what time in your life did you first encounter someone with a mental illness?
Oh, well, I can think of a couple of instances. I remember being about 8 years old, or maybe about 10. I think I had a cousin that may have been maybe experiencing. I mean, you never know as a child if someone's maybe bipolar or you can't satisfy them. But I remember being a child, and I like to have fun with my cousins, and trying to be able to please them and make them feel happy and feel welcome at home. And so I remember, trying to make this particular cousin be very just welcome at my home and trying to make sure that they could get whatever they wanted. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, here's Kool-Aid, here's a sandwich.
I'm
here's
going to
this-
have to cut you off here. We're
Oh.
coming close to an end here. So this
Oh,
is Our
yeah.
Own Voice on KSN Community Radio. We are going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Rhonda. Welcome back to Our Own Voice, a partnership in mental health awareness in cooperation with Nami Wichita and KSUN Community Radio. Nami is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Our Own Voice is intended to humanize the misunderstood, highly stigmatized topic of mental illness by showing that it's possible and common to live well with a mental health condition. So, before the break, Rhonda, we were talking about a cousin.
Yes.
And you want to share more as to
Yes.
what you were discovering?
Yes, I think I always wanted anybody that came to my house to feel very comfortable with, playing and, being able to be, comfortable in my house. And so, of course, I was trying to make sure they got the right Kool-Aid, the right sandwich, whatever. And so I could never please that particular cousin. And so it just frustrated me because I'm like, okay, you don't like the Kool-Aid. Okay, I had to switch out the Kool-Aid. I had to switch out the sandwich. And so I was like, I can't please this person. So I kind of figured out, of course, I didn't know what any kind of disorder was as a 10-year-old, but I just kind of figured out as I reflected back on those years that maybe that person had some kind of disorder that, of course, I didn't know what it was, but I just figured out that that's probably what was going on.
Okay, fair enough. So, about 10 years old, move all the way forward to undergraduate work and graduate work. What made you go psychology?
Well, my mom was a mental health technician at Wesley.
Okay.
And so she would always talk about some of the cases that she had. And I'm sure that made an impression on me as a child that, she was always, working with those, the mental health population that she dealt with on a daily basis. And so I was always fascinated by psychology and behavior in general. I just loved the mind and how people behaved. And so I was always going to major in psychology when I got to college. I just loved that. And so I was actually going to be an attorney. I wanted to be an attorney. I was going to be Perry Mason. I was going to make people confess on the stand.
All right, yeah.
So I was going to be that. But then I actually was going to, I did a cooperative education in college. And so I was at legal services every day. And I decided to change my major. I was like, I don't know if I can be an attorney. That doesn't really line up with my values as a person. And somebody can always dispute your case. Suppose they bring in this 1885 case and it disputes your whole argument in your brief. And so then I said, well, maybe I'll become a clinical psychologist because, people are always telling me their problems. And when I was in high school, I was always the counselor. I was always able to give people good advice about their relationships and that kind of thing. And I said, I'll be a therapist. And that seems to match up really well with my personality. And so I decided I don't know if I want to do that either. I was in a class, and one of my professors was in a social psychology class, and he said, "Do you want to help a whole bunch of people at one time?" And I was like, "What discipline is that?" And it was community psychology. And of course, we still do deal with mental health issues in that area because you can do more prevention, you can do social work, you can do social support networks.
Yeah.
And so I love that part of integrating people with mental illnesses into the community so they can be functioning and positive people in the world and in the community.
Excellent. Okay, so now wrapping all that stuff up and actually pulling in Nami, when did you first encounter Nami?
Well, actually, I believe it was in a class where they came and talked about some of the services that they provide in the community. And so I've always believed in kind of a service learning component in my community psychology class. And so I believe they came and talked to my class about how my students could be involved in the organization.
Okay, so that's how you encountered Nami. Now I'm sort of trying to steer this towards something that you had mentioned beforehand off the air as to what we wanted to talk about.
Yes.
So you have always had a focus on community
Absolutely.
and the psychology and welfare of the community.
Absolutely.
So bringing up something that's been in the news lately with the shootings and everything. How do we encounter the community to strengthen them to deal with that stuff?
Well, we've got to create partnerships. And I think I actually wrote a paper.
Oh, really?
Yes. It was called Mental Health Provision, Religion, Politics, and Guns. College students expressed their concerns. It was in partnership with an undergraduate student who actually wanted to do that kind of research. And, because the media keeps blaming people with mental illness for being violent. And they're really not. They're often more likely to be being perpetrated by violence, being the victims of violence and not necessarily being the perpetrators of violence. And so I think that's just a myth that's out there. And so we've got to make sure that myth is not continuing to be in the media. And so I really want that to be out there. And so Obama created a task force. There's federal policy about closing background checks and just increasing access to mental health services would be some ways that we could actually create these partnerships with people.
Excellent ideas. Wow.
There needs to be more help for those with mental illness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
that's very key there.
Yes, and so we actually asked college students about what they thought.
And I'm going to have to, yeah, we're out of time again. Back up to that thing. So this is Our Own Voice on Case and Community Radio. We are talking with Rhonda about mental illness. We are going to take a quick break after these messages.
Our Own Voice is brought to you by Nami. If you would like to learn more about the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the programs we offer, or get involved, please visit NAMI.org.
Welcome back to Our Own Voice, a partnership in mental health awareness in cooperation with Nami Wichita and Case and Community Radio. Nami is a National Alliance on Mental Illness. So, Rhonda, we were talking during the break, and I don't even know where to start because it's such good stuff. So go ahead and go with what you were going to say. You had a quote.
Well, we'll start with the federal policy that was recommended by the Obama administration for in his Now is the Time which was published in 2013, which calls for closing background check and loopholes to keep guns out of dangerous hands, banning military style assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, while taking common sense processes to reduce gun violence by limiting ammunition rounds to 10, make schools safer, and increase access to mental health services. When we also ask students about do they believe that increasing access to mental health services will help prevent gun violence, the students believe that that was an important variable to concentrate on. And the students also felt that it was important for insurance companies to offer mental health services the same way that they would for just regular, health insurance.
That's called parity, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
So, I mean, what's happening now is that all of the states have really cut mental health services, and so that's why we're trying to regain ground. Because Kansas, for example, has really been cut, and I know you know this because I think I got that information from the Nami book that you guys compile. That Kansas has really took a cut during the Brownback years of just mental health services not being provided for. So we're trying to play catch up, and I'm hoping that Laura Kelly will increase the funding for mental health services in our state. And so, yeah, we are really behind. If we can really support our people with mental health issues to get the funding that they need and the services that they need, then people will just feel better and be able to really be incorporated back into society, because everybody wants to contribute and be considered as valuable to the society. I just attended a conference, and one of the speakers talked about mattering. We all want to matter. We all want to feel a part of the society.
Excellent. Excellent. So, and speaking of conferences, you sort of jumping away from something for a moment and everything, but you were our co-host as well as our moderator for our panel that we had for the Minority Mental Health event.
Yes.
And you were absolutely marvelous.
Oh, thank you.
You
You're
were
being too
wonderful.
kind.
Oh, it's true. It's simply true. You were fantastic. And you did some great things, asked some good questions, and really got those panelists to open up and share. So thank you for that.
Oh, no, thank you for inviting me for that. But the panelists were absolutely phenomenal.
They were.
I really thought we had some really, really interesting questions, particularly the one about marijuana.
Yes.
There was a question about marijuana, and somebody wanted to smoke marijuana to address their mental health issue and their condition. And I think that we need to really do more research on that. Of course, I don't want to say that that's not a vehicle for improvement, but I think the panelists were really open and honest and transparent about whether or not, marijuana will help address the issue if you're taking medication, and whether that's going to really address your issue.
Right.
Because you've got to make sure your medication is in line with if you're smoking, marijuana. And taking your medication.
Yeah, because and you're right. We need more research.
Yes.
More education. It's like people tend to they tend to self-medicate.
Yes.
Through things like alcohol.
Absolutely.
And other recreational drugs. And alcohol is a depressant.
Yes.
And so it makes really little sense to no sense for someone who is a depressive like me to drink and think that that's going to help things.
It's not.
It doesn't.
It's not.
It'd keep you hydrated, wouldn't it?
No, it doesn't.
You're right. It doesn't at all.
It's
alcohol dehydrates you.
You're
Yeah.
right.
That's right. And that was my second example that I was going to use from my own family history. That I'm not sure again if he was ever diagnosed, but I believe my grandfather also suffered from depression, and he also drank alcohol. So again, there's that self-medication from communities of color. I mean, I don't want to generalize to all communities of color, but I know from my own family that he was a depressive probably, but was never diagnosed. And then when he would have his episodes, my mother had the courage to be like, okay, you need to get help. You need to seek help. And then the family would be like, oh, why are you getting him help? Well, he needs help because he's not functioning properly.
That's phenomenal that your grandmother was
No, my mother.
Your mother.
My mother.
Your mother was point on. That is
She got
awesome.
him the help that he needed, and it was not looked upon favorably by the family.
Oh, wow. That's sad.
Of course.
But on
it
the
was.
other hand, if he had diabetes or any other disease,
That's right.
then they would have applauded when they said, "Oh, you're getting him some help. This
That's
is great."
right.
He has a
That's right.
mental disease and or issues or
Yeah,
whatever.
that's right.
And they're saying, "Well, no, that's not what It's totally different, isn't it?"
Yeah, but she completely had courage, and I really applaud her for getting him the
Yes.
help that he needed. And when he got the help, he would always tell her, "Thank you for getting me the help that I needed because I was off course." And I think that to me helps reduce the stigma.
Excellent. Well, I need to note again, because we keep running up to that little break, This is Our Own Voice on Kaysen Community Radio. We are talking with Rhonda, and we will be right back. Welcome back to Our Own Voice, a partnership in mental health awareness in cooperation with Nami, Wichita, and Kaysen Community Radio. Nami is a national alliance on mental illness. Now, David, I missed having you give us that number, so I'm going to ask for that number now.
Are you talking about 316-686-1373?
Yes,
Or are you talking about 686?
1373. Either one will
Okay.
work because
Okay.
that's the number that we need to get out there for people.
And we certainly want anybody that wants more information about NAMI to give that number of a call. It's an answering service. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. If it's an emergency you have, that is not the number to call. Call 911 or the crisis center. But again, it's 316-686-1373. And we will give you all the information about all of our free programs and support groups that we have going. And that's how I got involved, was with the family-to-family class, because my son has schizophrenia. And I think Dr. Lewis might have something to say about schizophrenia.
Yes, go ahead and give us those quotes.
Yes, this is in relationship to the media always casting the mass shooting as people who have mental health issues, and I get tired of the stigmatizing way that people with mental health issues are cast in that way. And so I wrote an article in 2016 with an undergraduate student called "Mental Health Provision, Religion, Politics, and Guns." College students expressed their concerns. And as I was doing this research, I had to quote some of the mass shootings that had happened. And so I'm going to just read a couple of quotes from that paper. The research shows that unless a person with a mental illness also has a comorbid substance abuse or has a history of violence, he or she is no more likely to be violent than anyone else, even if they are recently discharged from an institution. Stedman et al., 1998, and it's a direct quote. And then there's also another quote from the paper that says, the reality is that people diagnosed with schizophrenia, for example, have a victimization ratio of 60 to 130% higher than the general public. So they are more likely to get victimized than anyone else. And so I think that that's just a misnomer that people with a mental illness are more violent than other people, and that's
Yeah.
not true. And
Yeah.
I think that we just need to stop saying that. I think what happens is, given the recent violence we've experienced over the weekend, is that these are just kind of isolated events, but on a daily basis, people with mental illness are contributing members to our society. They matter, and we need to work with them in their recovery, and we should build coalitions with people such as organizations like NAMI to help us to come up with solutions. And the whole community should be rallying around in these kinds of times to come up with just better solutions about how to address all of these issues that they all care about. Because, these people are really wonderful community members.
Yes.
And they want to be contributing members of society instead of us blaming them for these events, these are two isolated events.
Yeah. I want to throw another question at you, and that is, who is your hero or heroine?
I typically don't really have a heroine, but I would have to say my mom is a really good person. She's her name is Martha Lewis, and
I could have guessed that.
she's incredible. She's an incredible person. She is just has been a great mom. She went back to school at 40 and became a social worker. And because of her years in the mental health field and being a social worker, she's been great. She's
That's
wonderful.
phenomenal.
She's really great.
That is so wonderful. And
Yeah.
you are doing her proud. Let me tell
Oh,
you.
thank
You are
you.
fantastic.
Thank
so,
you.
well, I think your point that you were trying to make that you made about not victimizing the mentally ill. I don't know why people do that, other than they just want a handle as to blame someone.
Absolutely.
And look, folks, there's other reasons and other things to blame. So yeah, we can't go with that. So okay, well, thank you for joining us for Our Own Voice on Kason Community Radio. Thank you, Rhonda, for talking with us about mental illness, and join us for our next Our Own Voice program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.